Is being telecast and recorded on Channel 14. I also remind any member of the public who wishes to make an audio or video recording of the open session of this meeting to notify me first as chair, and I will then inform the public of the recording as required by the open meeting law. Is there anybody who wants to make the recording? Okay. As we begin tonight's meeting, I would like to welcome our newest member, Natalie Kanelopoulos, to the committee. I'm not sure if she was formally introduced, but who cares? Let's do it again. Okay, so welcome, Natalie.
Thank you.
Okay. So the first item on our agenda is public comments. Okay, I would like to read a little message about that also. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes per individual to items not on the meeting agenda. There will be no debate taken or action taken on public comment items. The committee will take items under advisement, or the individual may request an item to be placed on a future agenda. The chair may allow public comment on tonight's agenda items when they occur during the meeting. With that said, we welcome our first person who would like to make a comment.
Patricia Oshman, a parent here in the school system. And I have a seat at the Affirmative Action, and I'm Human Rights Commissioner. I just want to handle this rose to Mrs. Taylor, to gratitude for this amazing, incredible services that you've done to our community.
Oh, thank you. Do you want to walk up and give it to You were on the camera back there, so if you're worrying about that.
Thank you, Tricia. Yeah. That's so sweet. Thank you very much.
No crying. Is there somebody else who would like to make a public comment?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I unfortunately came to complain, so I apologize for that to start. My name's Amy April. I'm a mother of 2 at North Falmouth Elementary School, and I'm also a scientist in the Marine Chemistry and Geochemistry Department at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. So I came here tonight to talk to you about the use of styrofoam lunch trays in the school, in the North Falmouth School. So the trays are single use and disposed of in trash barrels at the end of each lunch period. The trays are given to all students that purchase their lunch, and this has been the practice for the 3 years that my son has attended the school. There are 2 main problems with using styrofoam trays. The first is that styrofoam is a huge problem for our environment. It does not biodegrade. It can't be recycled. After a typical 20-minute usage by the students, the products will be transported to a landfill where they will remain there forever. Secondly, eating off styrofoam may pose some health problems for our students. The synthetic chemical styrene is used to make styrofoam, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services lists that as a known or possible carcinogen. While the school obviously doesn't intend for the students to be eating styrofoam, by poking at it with their trays, they may be ingesting some of these styrene particles. Secondly, placing hot, oily and acidic foods onto the styrofoam, such as the spaghetti and meat sauce that's being served tomorrow at school, can cause the styrofoam to leach and to break down and leach styrene, thereby causing the kids to ingest a carcinogen. As parents and educators, it's our job to keep our kids healthy and teach them to be responsible citizens of the community. By serving styrofoam for lunch, I think we are failing our kids. I strongly urge the school committee to form, yet another committee to think about reducing styrofoam in our schools and find alternate solutions such as reusable stainless steel trays or biodegradable trays made of plant-based products. I'd be happy to play a part in this process. So overall, our schools need to stop serving styrofoam for lunch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes?
Hi, I'm Kathleen Haynes. I am the chair of the Commission on Disabilities. I come to you, I would like to get this on the agenda at some point because you're already familiar with the item. It's the inclusive playground for the town of Falmouth, the Falmouth Community Playground. And it has been publicized as being part of the Recreation Committee thing. Well, it's actually been an initiative of the Commission on Disabilities for a couple of years. We've been working on it. We went to the Recreation Committee for a place to place it. Fuller Field would have been a great place, except they only have between 3,000 and 5,000 square feet. The playground we're envisioning is going to take about 20 to 30,000 square feet. So it's impossible to put it at Fuller Field. We're looking at a couple of locations, one closer to town, one closer to here. I'm in the process of filling out the application for the CP grant that has to be in August 8th, excuse me. And at some point I'd like to have it on your agenda, and I'd also like to get a letter of support from the school committee, as I will be going to other commissions and committees in town to get their support for the project. It helps with the CP processing fund to help show that the town is looking for this type of project. So right now, like I said, I'm in the stage of writing the grant. I do have a playground designer I'm working with on the grant who's coming up with plans. He has advised me along the way, all the way, and he actually was responsible for, not him himself, his company, for the Mullen Hall playground. And for a reference point, that is 12,000 square feet. So, you know, at 3,000, 5,000 square feet at Fuller Field, there's just no way to put a playground. And what will happen there is they're hoping to place the playground that's already up above down on the field once all that is cleared and whatever happens down there. Because one of the big problems is they need the green space for the day camp. And putting a playground in there with the needs of the Commodores takes away the green space. And there's just no way to accommodate 3 or 4 different things in that small space. And that's ripping out the bleachers, because the Commodores have basically from the 50-yard line down, and right now if you've been down there and seen the field with the barrier for the outfield, it actually is less space than that. And we don't want to put children in the position of being on a playground when there's baseballs flying. So that would be conducive to anybody. And as it stands right now, the Commodores actually want to place bleachers out towards center field. So they're working that out with the Recreation Department and with Joe Lennick. But as it stands, we need to find a place for the playground, which we're close to identifying, but it's just is not going to work having the rec committee take it over and not have any place in their area to put it. So we've been working on this for several years, and now it's back in our lap, and we will be doing the work on it. So that's what I want to bring to you. So if you could put me on the agenda at some point, I would really like that.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, and we'll get it on the agenda.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Yes?
Hi, Craig Martin, Precinct 9. She wanted me to record that so she could record it.
I wrote it down.
You wrote it down, okay.
I did. It'll get in the record. Thank
okay,
you.
Sure,
Thank
thanks.
you for that.
I'm here to discuss a recently passed Article 22 at the recent town meeting that we had, and that was regarding the Lawrence School seats. I didn't get recognized at the town meeting, and I wish I had, but I'm glad you gave me a moment to describe my concerns. I'm particularly biased by the current situation as it is now. I find it to be an authentic, grand room, and I know with the wooden chairs, it is what heightens that. It doesn't come out as a gaudy movie theater. So I'm really troubled by that, but that's a subjective point. I understand that. From a pragmatic point is I don't think the new seats can succeed. Just my history, you know, when I was younger, growing up, working at all-town motels and hotels as maintenance, I never succeeded in getting an insertion into old concrete. It's a bear. I mean, the older it is, the drier it is. It's hard to get something to implement something inside the concrete. And this is right now with the Lawrence schools, and Don Drew, he's been so much help to me in explaining what the situation is now. The bolts that are in there now, and these seats are pretty outstanding on the length of duration we've had out of them. But what's more impressive is the iron cast foundations that hold the rows that hold in the seats. Very little movement, if any. I've never seen one movement. And that's because the bolts were laid down in the foundation, and they're shooting straight up through the base of the foundation. What we're going to do here now is we're going to be drilling to get into it when we strip these out. And if you get one row of those foundations that they can't get implemented, it's going to be problematic, because it's going to be out of synchronicity with the other rows that we have. And I don't think you're going to have much success in getting more than a few rows down there with that old concrete. And we're taking a huge risk, because once that comes up, now what do we do? And I predict, and I've told many for a couple months, I do predict that eventually the vendor's going to say we have to lay down wood planks throughout the whole floor, covering the floor, so that they get something to adhere the rows to. And after that, of course, they're going to say, well, now we have to lay carpet down over that, and now we've got new fabric chairs and new carpet. Now the acoustics has gone out of the room. I really am concerned about that. We're taking a risk for very little benefit. The town, I know it was originally for town council, town meetings comfort, and that's how it was presented to the finance committee. And I know at the town meeting, those who were uncomfortable waved up their own cushion that they brought for it. And this is for a few nights a year, a few hours a night for 4 or 5 nights a year. And I just don't think it's worth the risk, aesthetically and logistically. I really think that this is going to be a problem. Speaking of the fabric on the chair, I'm assuming that these things are going to come marinated in stain repellent and flame retardant, especially being in the school. And reports have come out in the news in the last half a year that we're overwhelmed, as this woman was talking about the styrofoam concerns, we're overwhelmed with exposure to these flame retardants and stain repellents. They dry, like everything in life, dries over the years. They turn into particulates, and when you're plopping down, now you got the particulates plopping up. And the reports are coming out this year that we're well overexposed to that. And I think these are going to come marinated in them. And I predict in 3 or 4 years, if it did succeed, that we're going to have to replace them just because of that health problem. So I suggest that we consider repairing them. We can find craftsmen in town to repair instead of replacing these. I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your information. Are there any other comments from the public? Oh. Okay, next on the agenda is a report from the Student Advisory Board. Apparently they are not here. I just wanted to say a couple things that are going on in school tonight, like the Follies at Morse Pond. We have 2 teams in state semifinal tournaments, so this time of year at school, there's just so many things going on in it. I love to mention things with the kids. I mean, those are kid things, not budget things, which I personally think is great. Okay. So the next on the agenda is the school committee meeting schedule for next year, 2018 to 19.
So if you look in your packet, you'll see the yellow sheet that has the meeting schedule, and it looks a little bit different. And the only reason it looks different is because we had to make sure that it was accessible before it goes up on the school website. So the format is just a little bit different, and that's why.
Okay, is this our first read on this? Are we going to?
This is our second.
First,
I think we're looking to have it be acted on.
Make a motion.
okay.
Make a motion to approve the school committee meeting schedule for 2018 to 2019.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, is there discussion?
Yes, we need a date change. November 13th is a Tuesday.
Sharon, I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure. I was going over that. That is a Tuesday.
Oh.
And Monday would be the 12th, correct?
You are correct. Sorry, Sharon. I gave you the wrong date.
So it'll.
Oh, no, that's right. It just isn't, town meeting will not be on Monday, though it'll be on Tuesday, because Monday's Veterans Day observance. So it'll be Tuesday,
So
November
it's still the
13th.
13th, but we're going
It's
for
still the 13th.
Monday to Tuesday.
Yeah, it's just Tuesday.
So I'll repeat, the date is correct, but the day of the week is what we're changing. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, which one is that again?
The November meeting.
November 13th.
Natalie?
Yes, and the same with June 2nd. I believe that's a Sunday as well.
Okay, does somebody have a calendar?
Yeah, it's June 1st.
So June 1st.
Sharon, I'm really sorry because I read these to you and I did them wrong.
But that's okay, because that's why we review them. So,
Now, what is up with the TBDs for April?
Town meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't know the dates yet.
are there any other comments or considerations? Okay, is there,
I'll make a motion.
Oh, we already made
we
it.
did.
right, I'm sorry,
So,
that's not what I meant.
would we like to vote on this then?
Yep.
Okay.
Vote as amended.
Vote as amended, that would be the day of the week and date changes. All those in favor, please by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so that's good. The next item on the agenda is subcommittee appointments. And I wanted to say something about the public may not know, or new and or old members may not know, that the subcommittees titles and things that they deal with can change from year to year, and they really should change from year to year because they're dealing with things that are seen to come up during the year. For example, we added a new subcommittee this year called the Fields I forget what we called it, but we added a new committee that has to do with the athletic fields. Okay, we call it the Athletic Field Liaison Committee, and that kind of took the place maybe of the school building needs. So that was one thing I wanted to say. And during the year, I read our policy manual, and it seems to me if a need for a new committee arises during the year, we have the authority to initiate one. For example, I don't know that the year we had the calendar task force committee, that was on at the beginning. During the year we found that we needed it, so we added it. So we can do that, okay? That being said, one other thing I wanted to say was there's only one person who volunteered to be on the athletic field committee, and I think maybe we could use some more people. So
I'd be happy to help out with that.
okay, so we can
I'm
add.
kind of light on the subcommittees.
Okay, so we will add Melissa to that. Is there anybody else who will be interested? Okay, Bill?
Great.
Anybody else? Okay, so we will add Bill and Melissa to that committee. One other thing about the committees is that if you look at it, some people have more committee assignments than others, but it also should be noted that some committees meet once or twice a year, some meet every month. So that's why it may seem that one person has more assignments than the other, but actually Kelly helped me. We looked at the general time commitments of things too. And another thing that changed was the school liaison, school council liaison positions. Each person was assigned one, and I went to the, happily, went to the DESC website, and I read what they were looking for the makeup of school councils, and it says, I'm just going to quick read this to you. A school committee member who is a parent of a student attending a school may run and be elected to serve as a parent member of the council. It is contrary to the spirit of the law, however, for a school committee member to be appointed to serve as another person or public member of the council. The intent is to widen the base of citizen involvement and support for the school. School committee members are already involved at the highest level of local school governance and are not encouraged to serve on school councils. So that had been kind of banged around. This is not a decision that I think I should be making, but it's a little background I did, and I think this is a definite agenda item for our retreat in the summer as we delineate what our protocols are for everything. So that's just for food for thought. In the meantime, these, maybe there's a couple of, there's a lot of principals here today. There are no more school council meetings for the, faculty council meetings for the year, am I correct in that? So that we can timely do it during our agenda this summer then, right? Okay. All right. So, is there a motion to accept the assignment roster?
I'll move to accept with the additions on the athletic fields liaisons.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on this now?
Well, do you want to have the exception to the school council liaisons so we can talk, was that we were going to talk that out through the summer? Or are we okay with that now?
Well, it's the role. It's not that the people are
that's fine.
assigned. It's the role of them.
Okay.
Okay?
So we'll figure out what that's going to
We'll
look like.
figure out what that's going to look like.
And like I can say that my child, neither of my children are at Morse Pond right now, as being the school committee liaison. I can say that my kids are not at Morse. We will have to revisit this next year.
Okay.
Just saying that.
Terry, just as an effort to clarify, I think what you're saying is that you're sitting in the meeting, you're not a voting member of that council, you're a liaison on that, whatever they're discussing.
Right. And further, do we even want to attend those meetings? Do we want to check in with the principals? Okay, those are the kind of things we should decide as a protocol, official protocol. Okay? So good. Or is there any other discussion? Okay, let's take a vote then. I would like to get a vote to approve this subcommittee roster. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Next thing on the agenda is a request to, act on a recommended request to status book surplus from the curriculum office.
So on behalf of Dr. Princess and T-Ticket School, we're requesting lists of texts that were included in the packet be designated surplus as they're no longer in use in the school district. And so that requires approval from the school committee. We're looking, because of the age of the texts, they're over 10 years old, so companies aren't buying them back. We're hoping that we can first give them to students in the school who may want to bring them home. I remember doing that when I was a student myself. And then looking to recycle and dispose of any additional texts that are not being taken by students. The end of the year we typically do this, but this is a little more time sensitive as T-Ticket, where these texts are being stored right now, T-Ticket is having some maintenance over the summer, so they're hoping to get a jump start on that.
I would motion that we approve it as being surplus and dealt with and distributed as seen fit by our director of curriculum.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any discussion? Leah?
So I'm just looking at the,
Did you want to discuss? No. Okay.
how many texts there are here, and it must take up a lot of room. But I'm thinking that this is like a whole Reading Street program, is it?
It's actually not all of the Reading Street that we have.
Okay, but it's a big chunk of it.
Yeah.
I know that we don't have time right now, but in thinking about, are there any districts that could use these texts? Maybe it's not a Massachusetts district, maybe it's a district in Louisiana, or maybe it's a district someplace else. But I just look at this and I'm like, you know, I know that we used Reading Street for a while here, and just looking at how much this would cost a district, and potentially that it could benefit a district who needed some support. It might be a private school, it might be a charter school, it might be a public school, I don't know.
From the curriculum perspective, they're over 10 years old, so they're not really aligned with anything that's being taught, at least in Massachusetts right now. If recommended, we can look into that, but then other questions would come up of the cost of shipping it wherever it would go, who would carry that burden. So I think a much larger discussion would need to happen. But that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah.
Megan?
Just to clarify, are these like the leveled reading books?
It's a variety of different, I think there may be some in there.
Only, they're not?
No.
Okay. So for like making book bags for children in the summer, there wouldn't be those type of books that would go into that?
Workbooks, those are the kind of things that we give to the children, but they're none of the leveled readers.
Okay.
It looks like it's the basils. Is it like the basils?
John?
No, just a comment. I know this does come up every time we have a surplus book, and I do think it's a sort of a comparison, a metaphor to the food industry and restaurants and whatnot. Theoretically, it'd be great to assign that food, over to someone that gets wasted every day. But I do think, with regards to bringing it back to the books, you could have a full-time job just trying to figure out who would, and that's not what I think our director of curriculum should do, trying to figure out who would get them, the cost. And then just, again, the age of the books. It's sad when it happens, and it's like Toy Story. The toys have a life of their own, and at a certain point, they're not used anymore. So I just would rather you not spend the time on it. I'd rather you worry about the Falmouth kids.
Yes. I think if you give them back to the Falmouth kids, that's the way to go. It's easiest. It's probably the most productive for kids to have this, especially giving them out now. They have them for the summer. Some of them will use them, but I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay, so could we vote on Zach's recommendations as motioned by John? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. The next item is to act on a band trip to Washington, D.C. in the spring of 2019.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Kayla Peard. I am the high school band director at Falmouth High School.
I'm Steve Edwards, the Fine Arts Department Head.
So what we are proposing is the biannual band trip. 2 years ago, or last school year, we went to Chicago. So we're proposing it's actually a date change to March 28th to 31st. The festival moved on the weekend. We had selected on all the pre-forms. So if you look, the 2 selected forms, like samples of the items, those ones are dated correctly, the 28th to the 31st. It's a Thursday through Sunday. So we would take buses down. The number of students is unknown. Last time we had 80 travel with us. Any of the students who are in the high school ensembles, wind ensemble, jazz ensemble, chamber ensemble, symphony band are eligible, as long also the marching band students, and that does include the 8th grade marching band students. So they are eligible to go on the trip. We are estimating it's about $850 per student. We do fundraising throughout the year with the Falmouth Band parents in a 2-year cycle. So we've had this year to start fundraising, and they have next year as well with a point system to reward the students for what they end up selling and giving back to the program.
I just want to thank you for presenting this to the school committee in, way ahead of time, as they had requested. So thank you for that.
Okay, so is there a motion to accept this proposal?
I would absolutely like the motion to accept this proposal.
Okay, is there a second?
I will happily second.
Okay, is there discussion now? Andrea?
I just had a quick question. You're mentioning the 8th graders.
Yeah.
When you went to Chicago, you also had 8th graders?
We had 4 8th graders who came with us.
Okay, so you've worked out all the logistics for...
we do different roomings with them in their smaller groups. So we base it off of the number of students once we get to the rooming, and we keep them mostly separated from the high schoolers in the room situation, and then they intermingle on the buses and everything else.
Great, thanks.
Liz?
What are you doing for fundraising?
Yep.
What can we look forward to?
Yep.
What are you doing for fundraising?
So the Falmouth Band Parents are the organization that spearholds that. So we will be doing the Falmouth Road Race. They do, I believe it's hot dogs and water.
Hot dogs and food tent.
The food tent. So they'll be doing that where students can earn points based on how long they work at it. And then we also do our annual greenery fundraiser in December where we sell like baskets and poinsettias, items like that. And they earn points for however many items that they sell, and then the points get broken down at the end of the year based on the income that comes in. So if a student earns 5 points, they get that kind of chunk of it, where a student can earn 200 points depending on how well they sell. We also do our annual holiday tree recycling in the Martin Luther King weekend. So we go around, we pick up the trees around town. And then we're debating about our last one. We usually do a fruit sale in February. This year we didn't do it because of the weather in both California and Florida.
Crop damage.
Citrus prices were not that good. So we're kind of rethinking what the other fundraiser going forward would be.
Thank you.
Excellent.
The
Yes,
regular
Kelly?
request that we make sure that kids, it's a lot of money. I mean, $850 is like some people's rent. So, well, actually, probably not enough, but close. And that kids, you know, if their family is struggling, they're also not going to be selling poinsettias to them. So, just wanted to make sure. Make a plug, as usual.
Yeah, we do let students know if they want to go to let us know, and the band parents do have a scholarship fund that they can apply for. And so we actually, on our last trip, had 2 students go on a partial scholarship and 1 go on quite a bit more. But they put like time in to help us out, like at all the events. So if they can't sell it, at least they're there helping and giving back that way. And so we give to them.
We're lucky we have the Falmouth Band.
We really
Yeah,
are.
we are very, very
They're very good to
supportive.
us.
Yeah, when
They
we
are.
have kids who need it.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, so I would like to take a vote on John's motion to approve this band trip to Washington in spring of 2019. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay,
Thanks. I'm off to band parents.
great. Have fun, and
Thank you.
we'll have to remember to broadcast about the tree removal and things like that too.
I do it every year.
Yeah.
And they only charge like $13, and I always give a couple extra
February's a long
bucks.
time to wait before you take the tree.
Yeah, I love the fact that we just put it on the curb. See you later. Thanks.
Next on the agenda, while they're setting up, will be a follow-up on the art trip that went to New York City, and I am very happy to see students here talking about it. It's great. So if you could introduce yourself and...
I'm Ayana Goffrigan. I'm Helen Cedar. And we're both in Ceramics 2 classes. So one of the first field trips we went on was on April 4th, and it was to Long Pasture. It's a bird sanctuary down towards Hyannis. And that was on a grant, and we had assignments for birdhouses. So we went down to the beach first, and we all got binoculars to look at everything on the beaches. And we walked through the woods to find birdhouses. And we had an assignment to make booklets to take notes. And each class had like a different assignment. So Ceramics 2 had birdhouses, Ceramics 3 had bird-lidded jars, so it's like a themed jar just designed around birds, and then Ceramics 4 had bird sculptures. And then we went into a room and they showed us all the different types of birds and their nests, and it was just a big inspiration for the project. And that's just more of that. And then we had a Boston field trip on April 7th. I believe we had to pay $20 for this field trip, but ceramics and graphics students went. We went to the Institute of Contemporary Art and Museum of Fine Arts, and then we had lunch at Mass Art. It was an all-day field trip. This is at the Institute of Contemporary Arts. Is the first thing you see when you walk in. It's a big wall that everyone was able to sign, and this is a hallway they have that you can just look out at the water. And we walked through here for a while. This is a picture of one of the, it's like a holographic wall in there that they put all different types of pictures on. And this is at the Museum of Fine Arts, where Miss Adams set us on a scavenger hunt through the museum. So if we found everything in the scavenger hunt, we would have 5 extra points on a project. So that's us. And this is Mr. Holiday and his graphics kids outside of the museum. because he retired last year, so he wanted to take a picture. He came on the field trip and he wanted to take a picture with his kids. And then went to New York City. And this was also a one-day trip. We left at 6:30 in the morning. We got there at like 11, 12. We were running really late, but it cost us $42.
Yeah, around like 48, yeah.
And we went to the Museum of Modern Art, and that's Helen in front of a piece of artwork.
Oh, that's me.
And we went to the Museum of Modern Art, and we went to the Met. And this is up the Met. And we walked around Central Park. This is the roof of the Met. We walked around Central Park, and we took pictures at Central Park. But we went there on we didn't get home till like midnight. It was a really big field trip, and it was a lot of fun. We got to see a lot of cool things and a lot of artwork, and it was just a great time, and I really liked it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot as well. It was, not only was it very interesting, but it was so much fun, and we explored the city that was really fun and interesting, and I loved the Met personally, the big staircases and all the big pictures and the sculptures from Rome and ancient Greece. It was really interesting, and I think it was worth it a lot, yeah.
The 6:30 in the morning wake up?
It was so worth it.
I bought us Dunkin', so it was fine.
Yeah.
Oh, and the New York field trip was for our Honor Society kids, and we needed, I think, 50 kids to go, and we got them. And then for Boston, we needed 20 from ceramics and 20 from graphics, and we were short for a long time. And then like the last day, we got enough people, so we almost didn't go, but it was worth it. Good thing we did.
That's awesome. Does anybody have any comments or questions for these people who brought these trips to life? That's exactly what you see, is the life of it. Yes, Leah?
Was this your first time in New York City? Looking at the museums, or no?
Well, at the museums, yeah.
Yeah.
But I went to New York for my birthday, so.
How about your classmates? Was it some of their first times being in New York City?
I think so.
Yeah, it's a neat experience.
It was so much fun. It was
New York,
so fun.
And then to be able to see all of the art too.
Yeah, that was so cool. Especially like the Met, that was really cool.
We really should have brought Sonia Telly, right? I understand she hasn't been in New York yet, so. We really should have.
Yes.
Next time.
Yeah. Okay, nobody else has any comments?
No,
Well,
thank you.
again, thank you for bringing it to life for us.
I have one. I just want to thank all the members of the school committee for making that trip a reality. As you can see, it was a great experience for all the kids. They learned a lot. We got a lot done in the art rooms because of these experiences, and I think it's going to be a long-lasting learning experience for everybody. So thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for the photos. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Next on the agenda is a first read on the school and district web pages, which has been forwarded to the whole committee from the policy committee. I don't know, do you want to say anything about it, or somebody on the policy committee want to say something about it?
So I'll say a few things on it. Sorry, let me grab my notes from here. We did a lot of work on this, and we moved to bring it to first read with our edits from last week, and it was a lot. It's been a lot, and I'm appreciative that we're here at first read with it.
Yeah. Yes, Andrea.
I'll add on to that, you know, the impetus for this came from Cynthia Tugas to really try to figure out and make sure we're adequately reflecting what the district is doing in terms of accessibility for all of our web pages. And as we try to incorporate her recommendations, we realized, based on looking at the reference manual from MASC that we had a lot going on in separate policies that made it confusing, and there were places that it was redundant. And so in the spirit of trying to make sure that we're as clear as possible and that we're actually, you know, people are able to look at that and make sure that we're following it correctly, and to get rid of any ambiguity, we have reduced that to what you see now. So there was a lot going back and forth between these to try to make one cohesive policy. So you'll see that reflected in a lot of strikeouts and additions, and if you're wondering why that is, that's a little bit of the background.
Thank you for articulating that much better than I did.
A theme that overrides the work of the policy committee this year has been to remove procedures from the policy manual. That's why sometimes you see a lot of deletions and things. It's not policy, the philosophy and ideas of policy. It's procedures, because they can become outdated in 1 year's time. You know, if you have a new attendance policy at the high school, for example, so that's why you'll see things. But as was said, this is the first read, and you know, you can read through it, and we'll come back to vote on it at the next meeting.
Can I ask a question?
Okay, yes.
So this came out, I'm just wondering Cindy's involvement in this, because it's so her domain, and I just want to make sure that we, you know, so she was involved.
She gave us some definitions, for example, what the webmaster's title includes. Those came directly from her.
And you can see that this is something that Sonia's been wonderful in doing, is keeping track of the notes that you'll see at the header, to show you what the colors are and how that's come about. And she's really been clear about keeping track of that. So originally the red came from Cynthia. So that was the impetus to start working on this. Okay. And then each time we've made changes, it's always been brought back to her for some input.
In a different color.
I just want to, you know, we have her, so I want to make sure she's the one that's sort of driving.
Yeah, it didn't come out of us as thinking this wasn't, you know, the most important next policy to work on. It came from her.
Awesome.
Well, and it came from her. Yeah.
And every color, just to reiterate, every color is, other than the red, that's what came from Cindy. Every color is one other time that we went and looked at it and put eyes on it and had discussion on it. So I hope that you can appreciate how much work has gone into it.
And a little, put a note in the new policy, committee members that who's ever on the policy now might want to watch for the next state, their monthly meetings, okay? So maybe, I don't know it offhand, but we could put that online. We don't need to do it now, okay? All right, so have fun reading all the colors. It's a colorful document. It may be heavy, but it's colorful. Okay, the next, are there any other questions before I move on?
So we're voting on that
next week? Yes. Or next meeting, excuse me. Next on the agenda, and since we're ahead of schedule, great news. Could I say that the lacrosse team won their game, so they're going to move on now to the final. So I got a text from a person at the game, so it was my niece. So anyway, that's great news. Okay, I'm sorry to say I don't know how the tennis team done. I feel bad not being able to say one for one team and not the other, but anyway. Okay, so the next item will be the handbook changes. Zach?
So the past two policy subcommittee meetings, we presented the proposed changes to the 4 district handbooks for the schools. The changes were in your packet for you, and I think based on policy subcommittee's recommendation, we hope you support the changes.
Okay, so do we need a motion first before we can discuss it? So someone would like to motion to accept the handbook changes?
Make a motion to accept the handbook changes.
A second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so discussion, comments. Leah?
So I feel bad, but this was my first time seeing the attendance piece, and I couldn't make the last policy subcommittee meeting because it was at 2 o'clock. But in looking at the attendance, I just feel that there is a lot of redundancy in that that could maybe be streamlined a little bit to be a little clearer for parents and more concise. I do have some specific things on it, but I can do that through the policy subcommittee or however.
Whatever the superintendent.
Well, my concern is that we've spent some time on this, and it's gone back to the principals and go back to the policy subcommittee, and this is a time-sensitive document that we need to work on because it becomes part of the handbooks, and we are extending it is going to make it difficult for us to get it in the handbooks and to get them printed.
So when is the time? When is the date? Do we know when? What is the?
Or what?
The print date?
Yeah, that it needs to be.
It's over the summer.
They should go out though.
There was a separate committee who wrote the procedures for the attendance portion of the handbook, so that group would have to reconvene. I know Tim McLaughlin was on that, Sonia was on that, some other people, based on the new policy that was approved, so they would have to come back together. I would take whatever your suggestions are, bring it to them. They would change, would go back to the policy subcommittee, then come back before the main committee to get their approval.
I have a suggestion. Could we possibly move forward with the handbooks and then possibly have a addendum added, sort of like a leaflet added at the back of the handbook, so that policy had a little more time with all of our members? Just a suggestion.
Okay. Everyone's welcome. Andrea's had her hand up for a while. Go ahead, Andrea.
When I read this one too, I thought, oh my goodness, how did I get this far for this tonight? And I feel like I hadn't looked at the attendance piece adequately, and I really apologize for that. I feel like we spent a lot more time on some of the big changes for academic dishonesty, and I really do feel like this did get overlooked at policy. I don't feel like we spent a lot of time on it, and like I said, I take full responsibility for that because I didn't spend a lot of time on it either. But I think if we want to make sure that this is as clear as possible for parents, it would be worth spending a little bit more time on it. So I don't want to, hold anything up, but I also don't want to send anything home that we're not, really feeling like people are going to be able to follow properly.
We spoke on the attendance portion specifically, not on our last meeting, but on the May 1st meeting. And we did spend some time on it, but I'm just sort of thinking, is an addendum after the fact, is that adequate? Can we go with that? Can we work with that? Should we? I understand the pressure for time on the printing of the handbooks. I'm just offering buy us more time.
Okay, everyone's welcome to make comments. Yes, Bill.
There was a committee last year on attendance, and I think a lot of this came from that committee. And I think it's sometimes, if you repeat or are redundant to things, I think for parents and attendance, sometimes that's good. I don't think there's a problem with that, to repeat. Sometimes with attendance and the importance of attendance, we need to be repetition. So I think there was time spent with the group last year and a committee last year to put this together. So I would say if it's needed for time's sake, get it done, do it, and then maybe revisit it in the off season and maybe make some clarifications where clarifications are needed. And if there's a need for another committee, then set up another committee. But to essentially negate what a committee had done within the last year, I think is ridiculous from a time standpoint to get this out, get it done. And again, if it's redundant, I have no problem with that as far as parents are concerned.
Okay, on a different venue, direction, I firmly believe that when we write policy, this is my opinion now, that we work in conjunction with the principals. I think some of the policies should come from them because they deal with it day to day, unless it's some blatant disagreement we have with them. So I tend to go on the side of their recommendations. And it was not just a principal or a couple of principals, it was a committee, as Bill had said. So, and again, right, repetition never hurts anybody. So that was my 2 cents on it, yes?
Yeah, so my comments actually are not at all about what the meat of it. It's just about some organizational pieces and just a consistency with when the note needs to be in. It references that it needs to be in the next day in the first section, and then later on it references it needs to be in within 5 days. So there's just some lack of consistencies within that I just want to make sure, and I think it should go back to the principals for which one. But I feel uncomfortable putting this out right now because of some of these inconsistencies in it, and just the way things are organized a little bit. For example, they reference each cut, but there's no definition of what a cut is until the next paragraph. So just some of those organizational pieces for parents to make sure that they're understanding the language involved in attendance, because this is something that we focus so much on and all of the schools have been focusing on, and I want to make sure parents are getting information that is as clear and concise as possible.
Okay. Do you have a suggestion? Could that be an edit of sorts? We could approve it. Would that be editable, or is that philosophy that needs to be addressed?
I wasn't on the committee that put this together, so I don't feel comfortable making suggestions about the work they've done, but I can bring it back to whatever your recommendations are. I'll bring it back to the group that put it together.
And let's just be clear, it will not go in the handbooks at this point.
I
don't think
can't imagine there'd be enough time.
Right. Okay, so I just want to be clear that if it is removed, it will go as some kind of an add-in or addendum, which also concerns me because it's about giving notice to parents. And when you put something in, it doesn't always get home. So there's just concern about that as well.
Oh yeah, Kelly, yeah.
So I feel myself caught in this weird thing because, you know, we rely so heavily on policy subcommittee to advise us because that is like the meat of what you do, and you spend so much time and effort looking at these things. So I rely heavily, I mean, I can obviously read it and try to understand it, but I do rely on your recommendation a lot. So in some ways it makes me nervous that you're not really sure. But at the same time, you know, I think that we've gotten to this point with this that we have to have something that matches our current attendance policy in the handbooks. And the things, like Leah, I can appreciate the things that you're mentioning, but those things make sense to me. You know, like, because the thing that says 5 absences or 5 days after an absence is just relevant for Falmouth High School. So they have different set of things than the other schools do.
Oh, see, I was under the impression that it was for, that was also for the high school, that it also includes this. It includes the top part and that.
Plus that.
It's all of it. So for the high school, that's where there's the inconsistency.
Okay. I'm just worried about, like, this is not what we're supposed to, this isn't how we're supposed to do. I don't want to be like editing policy at school committee because that's what we have policy subcommittee for. And you know, we know that this has to happen in order for it. To me, I would rather have something that's minorly inconsistent but in the handbook than have nothing. And I don't think that having, you know, if we need to edit it later, we can edit it later. But I don't think it's realistic to think that we cannot have a policy, I mean, not have our procedures that match the current policy. As much as it makes me uncomfortable to not have the firm support of the policy subcommittee, I can't imagine moving forward without approving it.
Bill?
I think it needs to be in the handbook, and I also have to look at school improvement. And over the last year, school improvement, every principal has brought up the fact of attendance. So with the relationship of an attendance policy and the relationship of a school administrator emphasizing attendance to kids, I think you cover it. So I think it needs to be in the handbook.
Andrea?
I've been trying to problem solve us out of this, and I was wondering if it's possible to, because I do not think that any of the issues are with content.
They're procedural, aren't they?
No, I think it's just
Organization.
clarity.
Yeah.
So can we approve the content as listed here and submit some edits that Zach can take to your committee? That potentially just by email say, is this okay? And get it done within a week.
As long as the content is still the same, you mean?
Right, because I don't think that anybody here is arguing about the content.
Wouldn't we have to
Nancy,
then
would that-
re-meet and vote on that?
Yeah, we're looking at the end of June.
Would that work?
I don't know. I don't know if, I don't think you could reconvene the team in the time. I'd like to know who would be the one who would be submitting the changes to Zach, and then he'd have to put it out to the principals. I would also say that I would not guarantee that we would make the timeline. So if the committee's request is that we reorganize this, I think we can definitely reorganize it, but I will not guarantee that it goes in the handbook. I don't think that's possible. We're already, I think it has gone to the policy subcommittee. As Mr. Ryder said, we had a committee that worked on this. This is what came through. If it needs to be changed, I just can't guarantee it will go into the book, into the handbooks.
John?
I support strongly how Bill phrased it, and I think this is a good document, and I'd like to have it in the handbook.
Okay. Leah?
So I don't want to hold this up from getting out to parents. I think it's really important. I think, we've been talking a lot about attendance. I know it's been a big focus in all of our schools. My request is that we do edit it next year and do make this just the organizational and the concise piece and the consistency within it. But yeah, and I really apologize for bringing it up so late. I have not seen it before, so this was, for me, it was the first time. And in moving forward, I think, if this is going to hold up getting information out to parents in the handbook, that's not what I want. But what I would like is for us to revisit this next year, or have the policy subcommittee revisit it and work with the attendance group who's been working on this document to just clean it up a little bit.
Kelly?
So I would very much like for us to approve this tonight, but then, there's something about striking while the iron is hot. If there are things that appear out of line, I think we should just send them. And
we should what?
We should send them on back to policy for reorganization right away. I don't want to wait and find us in the same spot next June. If there are easy things that we need to fix, let's get it published in the handbook, everyone will have it, and then we can start working on fixing it.
Okay.
And I would just ask that if you do that, I would ask that you send one document to Zach, not 3 or 4 documents coming from different school committee members. If someone takes a shot at editing it, if you could then get together and just make sure and give him one copy instead of having him chase down 3 or 4 different pieces that come in. Yeah. Streamline it, I think it would make more sense. It would be more organized.
John?
Clarification request, Kelly, when you say strike while the iron's hot, send changes, you don't mean to this
No,
year.
I mean, let's get it published, and then we'll deal with next year.
Okay.
Let's start working on next year.
Fair enough. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, the consensus seems to be we're okay with the content, which is the main point to reiterate, I guess. Okay, so we have a motion, correct, to accept it? So we will vote on that now. All those in favor of accepting the handbook changes, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Okay. Next, we will be graced with the, you want to do them alphabetically for a change, or?
By school or
by
person?
school, by person? I don't know. Do you guys want to decide who goes?
Rock, paper, scissors?
That's a good idea, Tim. Rock, paper, or scissors?
Sharon's just going to click on something.
Who's queued up first?
So whoever comes up first?
Mullen Hall.
Mullen Hall.
Mullen Hall, winner.
Chicken dinner.
Good evening. Happy to see you all. And before I start, just thank you for all the ways you support Mullen Hall and the kids and staff. We really appreciate it. I'm going to walk you through our 3 goals, and before I start, I want to call something out that I'm certain has come to your attention, that our school improvement plan largely features non-academic goals, but all of our educators have very focused academic goals. We decided as a learning community to look at some bigger projects, if you will, that really impact teaching and learning. But academic goals are part of the educators' goals, and I have a list of those if you're interested. And we have begun our MCAS analysis already to think about our academic goals for next year. So goal number 1, we really needed to take a look at tightening up and making our positive behavioral interventions and supports more focused. And we know that systems like this target about 80% of students, and then some students need kind of secondary plans or tertiary plans. And largely under the direction of Rosemary Ann over here, assistant principal, and Anne Marie Iandoli, we've had a lot of success with our PBIS. And one of the elements of this is our reflection room. And we've kind of split our spaces, if you will. Kids can come to our office to read a poem or celebrate something that they're really proud of. But if they need to stop and think, deal with conflict, then we go to the reflection room. And a few of our students know the drill there. We analyzed our incident reports, and last year you can see we had 83 incident reports and 37 students needing support as a result of an incident report, and we're down to 43 this year with 15 students needing support and care under what we would consider an incident. We know that kids make mistakes. We don't consider everything an incident, but our incidents have reduced drastically as a result of our PBIS systems. So I'm really proud of that number. And thank you to everyone at school for working on that. Goal number 2, we're talking about attendance. We certainly met our goal, but then there's a discovery that our students who are chronically absent, 10% or more, that number has increased. So I'll focus on the positive first. Our target was to reduce students with 10 or more absences because we had 35% of students falling in that category. It has dropped down to 18%. So we were looking for a 4% drop, and it's dropped by 17%. But our chronically absent went up from 9.3% to 12%. We know who these 50 students are. We've worked with the district attorney's office, with the Department of Children and Families, with the Family Resource Center, with homelessness advocates, with families, and we know who they are, and we just keep on working at it. So. And our attendance rate has maintained. We still have to look at the month of June, but to get this report ready to Zach and on time, we had up until May. So. And goal number 3, we wanted to make sure that we are reaching out to every family as intensively as we need to. We can't just invite them to a conference and they don't show and we say, oh well, we tried. So we really looked at multiple ways of getting families involved in ways that they're comfortable, works with their schedules. You know, traditional methods still stand, like meet your teacher night and lunch visits and volunteering and field trips and emails and conferences. And we've also added our March to a Million. We've trained volunteers to work with the TEAM program, which is the Accelerated Learner program that's come out of Zach's office. One teacher's having dinner with families in the school. We have a weekend food backpack. We're feeding between 55 and 65 people a week. Between Rose and I think we've sent 500 postcards to students just saying thank you for something, or we've noticed an improvement in your attendance. We've challenged all teachers to really explain why homework is given and make it meaningful. And we've had a number of families come to our IST, our instructional support team. That number increased. And the plan to design a laundry space is still underway. We have, in the fall, I got 2 washer-dryer sets, and they're ready to come to Mullen Hall. So we're working out the logistics. And we just got a donation of a refrigerator for our food program, too. So people are kind. At a minimum, all staff are expected to respond promptly, respectfully, and carefully, and we even walked through some scripts if some of the conversations can be difficult or challenging, especially new teachers. I think they need some help in talking with parents about something that might be sensitive. And through it all, we must do better. We need to reach out more, and we'll continue to do that. Any questions?
Thank you.
This is awesome.
Yeah. Andrea has something?
I do. 2 things, actually. One's a comment and then another's a question. The first one is on your positive behavioral interventions and support. I mean, that is just amazing to really spend that time and energy focusing and decreasing that in the number of students. So I really applaud you for that. Under attendance, my question is, you were able to significantly decrease that number of absent 10 or more days, but then notice that increase in the chronically absent. Do you think, knowing the students, did some of them move from that category to the other one? Did they become more absent?
So there are 50, so it's hard to, kind of really streamline that. I can tell you that 2 are school choice, and I don't think they're coming back because we've had so many conversations. You picked us. Why are you out 33 days? Or why are you tardy these many days? So, and maybe it just wasn't working for them, and that's okay too, through discovery. I think many of these families have some significant adverse experiences, and the stories are just amazing. So we individualize, we try to, as I said, Family Resource Center, the District Attorney's Office, homeless liaisons, just numerous ways of trying to make connections and get kids in. So I think the area where we succeeded, we just kept on working with families to maybe not take that extra vacation or reduce your tardies, things like that. So ongoing communication really worked.
Thank you.
Melissa?
So, speaking to your first goal with the reflection room, I think that this really speaks to instructing the whole child. And in that, when, as adults, we sometimes know, or sometimes we don't know, when it's time to take a break and walk away from a situation and kind of regroup and take a breath. It's hard enough to figure it out as an adult. So I really applaud you that you're really making an effort to recognize that you, to me, are having a hard time. And it's okay to stop a minute and say, I need to breathe. I need to take a breath. I need to walk away from a situation. A+ for that.
And I think it reduces the incidents.
It totally does.
Right, we're working down
really
here.
does.
We're front loading, skill building. Children have to work on a think sheet. How were you feeling? How was the other person feeling?
Right.
So that there's a kind of metacognitive quality to it, and it's respectful and restorative.
I like it. I also like your postcard celebrations. Cape Cod Healthcare has sort of been sending these out for a few years now. More managers, some with more managers than others. And I think it's really, really encouraging I can tell you as an employee, it's encouraging to know when your boss appreciates you. And I can tell you as a kid, it's encouraging to know that your educators appreciate you. So again, positive reinforcement, you know, and not just in the moment, but as educators, you know, kids sometimes will forget because they're so, you know, they're on the go all the time. But when they get a little piece of mail and it says, hey, you know, Miss Ashworth really remembered, or Miss Moran really remembered that I did something really well. And then now we're talking about it at home, more positive reinforcement. I like it. Thank you.
And 2 positive State House celebrations. One of our first graders won, she won first place for the state. Out of 2,500 first graders, she designed and described her ideal school. And I just took 16 children to Day of Portugal, and they sang the national anthem in the Senate chambers yesterday. It was remarkable. So David Vieira helped us with that.
Can I just back up? Is there any way that Mr. Murphy and I can help you with the laundry idea?
I don't know. They say venting, they say voltage, I say I don't know. No, I'm doing attendance and
okay,
goals.
but if we can, if
I don't know what to ask.
Or if his office, I love the idea of the laundry room. Yeah. So if we can support you in making that happen.
We are going to get a different plan to look at the issue.
Perfect, perfect. I want it to happen.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, John?
Just a comment on the absent versus chronically absent. I mean, cutting the absent 10 or more days in half is great. And then if you look at the 9.3 to 12%, I would suggest too that those are just anecdotal things that, that are independent, often would be independent and wouldn't necessarily relate to any other programs that are going on. Just that things that could spring up within, like you said, within individual families. So I would say just keep doing what you're doing, and it's great progress.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Ashworth.
Should we maybe turn the lights on, because the camera, it might be dark right for the...
I think you lights the front one off.
Oh, okay. So...
to be able to see the screen.
Oh, it's the screen they're looking at, not the people. Okay, I'm sorry.
Hello, everybody. I was at the Horse Pond Follies tonight. It's always so heartwarming because we do what we do because of the kids, and they're up on the stage and they were having so much fun and
singing Mamma Mia.
Great.
Oh my gosh, it was the cutest thing ever.
Okay, so goal 1 for East Falmouth School was to continue to invest in the students through close monitoring of academic and social progress. And we continue to maintain teacher databases where all the information that we possibly know about the whole child is placed in one area. And the teachers have been updating that so that that can be shared with articulation meetings in the fall, so that the new teacher knows everything they can possibly know about that child on day 1. So that was a big undertaking, and within that we're looking at ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, and that is a thing that changes daily for kiddos. Our attendance, we celebrated a little bit differently this year. Last year, if you recall, I talked about the Challenge 5, where we celebrated any child who missed 5 or less days by the end of the year. We found out that some students kind of gave up after 5 and continued to miss school, so we changed it this year to celebrating children missing 2 or less days every marking period, and we're getting ready to celebrate that. Right now I can tell you, looking at the statistics, last year we had 36% of our students missing 10 or more days, and now we're down to 28%. So I'm pretty happy about that change. And right now, as of today, we had 125 students missing 5 or less right now. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll celebrate all of that. I also had, more than ever, a dozen students missing 0 days. So we usually have 1 or 2. So I'm happy with the attendance so far. We have a partnership with McLean Hospital this year. It was fabulous. We did some case study and consultation, especially with our students in the Connect program, for the children with emotional impairments. and that was pretty much led by our school-based special educator, and it really helped us thinking about our challenging behaviors and challenging children, and how we could help them come up with their own coping mechanisms that are personalized for them, and help coach them in how to advocate for themselves for the things that they need when they get to a certain place with their emotions. So that was new and very helpful to us. And we extended our RISE training for our co-teachers, and we really see our co-teachers in our building stepping up, making leadership decisions, coming to administration saying, we'd like to try this, can we try this next year? And all good for the children with regards to service delivery, and having the general educator be the expert of the content and the special educator being the expert of how to make it accessible to all children in the classroom. So nice partnerships going on with the co-teaching. We also, I wanted to mention, I didn't have it there, is that this year all of the schools had the teaching assistants involved in all the staff meetings, which I think is invaluable to spreading the knowledge about kids to all staff, so that they can work to assist students with their academic and social progress. Okay, so I can go over here. I know, I'm trying to find it, and my eyes are so bad now. Is it right here?
It's this one.
Okay. Oh, do you want to hear a funny story? Can I tell them a funny story? My eyes are so bad since my surgery that I had this year. I said, I need a bigger monitor. Can I get a bigger monitor? Well, Cindy Tugas walked into my office just last week with a monitor this big that is now sitting on my desk. A staff member came in to ask if they could speak to me, and the secretary said, yeah, go ahead in. And he comes right out and said, she's not in there. I was in there, I was like, come here. But I can really see now well in my office.
So that is a Life is Good monitor TV, that one of the ones that John gave, and I asked that Cindy get me one right away, because I'm sure that my vision's
so
worse.
much.
You're very welcome.
I might be getting a sunburn from it or something. Okay, goal 2, to enrich high-achieving students through a differentiated support system. Again, we extended the team professional development. We were in cohort 2, and now we have about 50% of our students, teachers trained in how to work with top achieving students. East Falmouth has the committee for the computer science STEM committee. They finished their 3rd year now working at the state level. We're one of 10 schools represented there, where they were piloting the new model curriculum units to go along with new science standards. We continued our grade level data meetings and our need to monitor the interventions that we have in place to help students, and we also embedded some professional development this year with a program that's been around for a while, Reflex Math, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from the teachers that that little bit of PD that we gave really supported the students in holding on to their math facts. It's called the green light, getting to the green light, and made all the difference this year with students with their math fact fluency. And we provided families with kindergarten curriculum night, 1st grade math night, Title I literacy night, and I think that we're doing a pretty good job of knowing where our kids are and where they need to be, and celebrating all the wonderful achievements that the children are making. Goal 3 is was to enrich all students through a variety of before and after school programs. And I really, have to say, oh, here we go again. Is this it? There we go. Thank my PTO for sponsoring the enrichment program that's before and after school. There were 13 courses, different courses offered 4 times throughout the year, and we had 56% of our students taking advantage of that before or after school. We did reach out to any families that we thought that would not be able to take advantage of it, and offer scholarships and that. So again, there's a lot of work that goes into that, and the teachers are stepping up and teaching, and it's just been a wonderful opportunity for our students. We continued a lot of the things that you've seen in the past there. The community's grandparent support group and the nurturing father support group continue, and lots of great feedback with regards to that. Some of the things that we've done to also just help our students and our families is our continued holiday gift giving. We've helped 75 students this year. around the holidays. We continued with the Casual for a Cause, where teachers voluntarily donating some money to wear jeans on Friday to help our families. We had something new. We were looking for a way to be able to give to our students without them knowing that they were receiving it because they needed it. So we'd keep our eyes open, and when we would see a student in need of a winter coat or new tennis shoes, we would call them down and say, "You won the raffle." "Well, I didn't put my name in a raffle." "Everybody's name's in the raffle. You got the new tennis shoes and they're your size." And they're just really excited to win that gift, and it's personalized to their need, and we're going to continue doing that. And the donations come from our volunteers, from our staff, from other parents, and a nice way to give without making a child feel uncomfortable. And we also continued with our outreach to different various camps for the summer scholarships for some of our children who can't afford that. Finally, goal 4 is to develop and implement a more therapeutic approach for the students in the District's Connect program. Again, children in the Connect program have emotional impairments, and this is really where McLean truly supported us. But this year was a challenge because we had a lot of new members of our team. So we had McLean Hospital, then we had a behaviorist, we had a BCBA, we had a .5 school adjustment counselor, a special education building administrator, 3 teachers, 7 TAs. So we had a lot of cooks trying to make it a great program, and we got there eventually, but it was a little bit of a rocky start in the beginning. But the students are showing their success with all that support. There was increased time given to East Falmouth this year with a partnership with Gosnold, which was 4 days, and our Gosnold counselor was able to give 32 students counseling in school. So that was fabulous. We've had improvements in our data collection regarding patterns of behavior for the children in the Connect program, and focusing on the interventions that were done, and what the triggers were, and all of that really helped modify and change our behavior intervention plans for children. Because of the electronic data collection, it's much easier to graph and to see clearly in meetings. Continued common planning, but we put in something new this year where the common planning would extend beyond the grade level teachers, but would also extend to the Connect teachers across the 3 different programs that we had with the behaviorist and our SEBA and other related service providers. And I already said we had refined the entrance and exit criteria, so it's really clear. We did that more with McLean, with their support. And then just the continuation of refining our partnerships and adding more partnerships to support these children and their families. And I have a number of them listed there: outside counseling, in-home therapy, in-home behavior therapy, therapeutic mentoring, intensive care coordinators, family members. I mean, it goes on. And as I have been working with the Connect program over the years, I just keep seeing the team meetings getting bigger and bigger and bigger because we're supporting families in so many different ways. So again, I think there's been a lot of growth with the Connect program this year. Any questions?
John?
Dr. Dale, I know you had mentioned in the past, but I think it's worth mentioning the cool programs. I think the grandparent support group and the nurturing fathers support group, if you could just speak a little bit to those.
Yeah, those are actually done through the coalition, and they're after school hours. We reach out to our own families, but it's actually advertised to all families of their existence and their times, and they have food served at the grandparent support group. They have child care available. And I would, encourage anybody to come every year. I think the schedule might be tweaked a little bit, so look for the advertisement in September.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have a comment or a question?
This is just sort of a general one. I just love this. I know it's a lot of work for you guys at this time of year, but it is so nice to hear all these great things that you've accomplished after setting these goals at the start of the year. I mean, it goes for everybody, but I really like hearing how much has been accomplished all year long. Wraps the year up so nicely.
Great. Okay, Andrea?
I just had a small comment, something that jumped out as you were doing your presentation. When you mentioned the casual for a cause.
Yes.
And it just made me think that teachers are always giving so much, and yet here they are giving once again. And yes, maybe they're getting something from it, but it just came to me that I'd love to be able to help them to be able to do that in some way, right? And I'm sure there's many people in this community because I know that your teachers and your staff are giving so much of themselves every single day, and
So true.
I'd love to be able to help them be casual without having to do it themselves. So
one of the things
I'll
that
think
we do,
about that.
One of the things we do see a need for is just snack. They have snack in the classroom. Beyond, we do have fruit that comes into the classrooms, but many children come to school without a snack, and they will go into their packed lunch if they have it, but most often they don't. So then they'll keep a snack from their breakfast if they received breakfast. So having the breakfast program has been wonderful. A lot of children come to school and they're hungry, and they eat the entire breakfast, which is a nice sized breakfast. But I see teachers all the time with a big old thing of animal crackers or graham crackers or saltines, and I think that goes for all the schools.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, T-Ticket Tigers is next. T-Ticket.
We were ready to do rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
You're on a ticket. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Goal 1 for T-Ticket, once again, as you have heard, is to continually monitor the attendance of our students and to target our chronically absent population of students in an effort to determine the most appropriate interventions. So we've conducted our effective school-to-home and home-to-school communications, and we monitor our student attendance daily, making the phone calls when we don't receive the phone call into school from the home. And because it's a personal attempt to reach out to the parents, we found this to be very effective this year. And of course, we follow the new guidelines that were put in by the school committee on January 9th, 2018. While our attendance has remained pretty steady, the percentage of attendance going along, one thing that we have noticed is that we haven't had the significant absence concerns that we had in the past, and that is our chronically absent students out for extended periods of times where we've had to get the court involved, and we have in the past couple of years that I've been here. And one thing that, if you noticed in here, that I noticed was nice, one of our teachers included attendance in her SMART goals, and she sent postcards to her students when they were absent indicating that she missed them. And she noted that it has significantly impacted one particular student's attendance and has had a positive impact on others. So, as you noted earlier, sending out those personal postcards can really have a positive impact. And as I said, just the personal phone calls home when students are absent, or noting when they come in the door. We personally greet our students as they come in, we noticed you've been out, it's good to see you, things like that can really have an impact on our students. Goal 2 is that collaborative teams of teachers will monitor and take responsibility for student growth with a focus on the continuum of instruction, intervention, and monitoring. We use universal screening tools that we list here. Our teachers have conducted quarterly monitoring of students to pinpoint high priority areas of concern. Interventions were then put in place, and progress monitoring, continued to guide instruction in an effort to increase our student achievement. Administrators sent out reminders and supported teachers in conducting the quarterly assessment, so we put them right in our calendars. We do the T-Ticket times on Fridays. As the time for quarterly assessments were coming up, we sent out the reminders. We met with the teachers during their CPTs. And CPT is provided once a week for the teachers to discuss concerns and interventions to best support the students. And then when the concerns remain, we have our ISTs, which is the instructional support teams, and then they can bring the students to us if the progress monitoring doesn't indicate that the students are making achievement or gains, they'll come to us. We'll put in other structures or make suggestions or even make plans to go forward with special education testing if we feel that that's needed. And we also have co-teaching and differentiated instruction that's being used more effectively. As a matter of fact, I was really pleased to meet with Deb Harris, who's been, it's not in here, but she's been providing instruction in co-teaching in the district. And she met with us yesterday, and we're very, very proud of a couple of our teams that have been co-teaching. And one of our co-teaching teams this year, they've been in the 4th grade. They're moving down to the 3rd grade to greet some incoming 3rd graders. The plan is that they'll move up, they'll loop up with these particular children in 4th grade the following year. So they'll spend 2018-19 with them as 3rd graders and 19 and 20 with them as 4th graders. And so we have a 3rd grade teacher this year moving up with her 4th graders next year. So we have 2 sets of looping going on. And then also today, we have already done our placement. Shh. I know this isn't being televised. No, it is. But one of the nice things that we did, we have these things that we call green sheets, and our teachers have already gotten together and they're discussing the progress monitoring so that going into next year, they can spend their summers planning for the needs of the students. So the co-teachers or the looping teachers have the advantage of knowing their students, but the teachers who are receiving new students will also have the advantage of having spoken to the teachers who had the children this year so that they know a little bit of their academic needs, strengths, weaknesses, and what the students' needs are for next year, and they can plan for them this year. And that's a first. We hadn't done that before this year. Goal 3, ensure that T-Ticket Elementary School has a strong and healthy school culture that promotes a sense of participation, wellness, and safety for all students so that they develop the social, emotional, and physical well-being competencies that will enable them to be self-aware and have interpersonal skills to self-manage and make responsible decisions. So as I said, we greet and welcome students. It's not just the administrators, but we have staff out there. And this year we have I'm really happy to say we have the preschool teachers, administrators, everybody's out there greeting and bringing in our students. And our master schedule accommodates our sensory movement breaks for the children who need to have movement in their day. Periodic times in the day are built in, and there is a sensory room for children who need breaks in their day. And then our PTO also launched the after-school enrichment program, which was tremendously successful, and we ran 3 sessions. We had things like cooking, drama, track and field, Zumba, a running club. We had an Eric Carl session, sewing, and math clubs. It was phenomenal. As a matter of fact, we had wait lists for some of the programs, which is why we ran it 3 times and it was still overfilled. The PTO also has social functions that they hold for our students and families, things like our kickball, Harvest Fest, Trunk or Treat, movie nights, spaghetti suppers, book fairs, etc. We also have teacher-student connection activities, and these are things that we did as a faculty in order to strengthen connections for next year. And we're thinking about get-to-know kids boards out front with fun facts. It's similar to a board that we put up this year, and it was the first year we put it up, so if you've been in T-Ticket, it's pictures of staff members with their names, and some of them put it up with like someone's got a boat because they do boating, or pets and different things that they have. Bus line leaders from 4th grade, we started that this year. It's been very successful. We rotate them out, so our 4th graders feel really proud of themselves to be kind of the big kids on campus. Invitation to eat lunch with the principals as positives. Children love that. Peace Builder recognition boards, and pictures with the names on the cubbies. We noticed that the preschool does this, and it's a really great way to learn the children's names faster. So we thought about doing that with all students. And that shouldn't say Cape Cod. So there were a couple of people who edited this or read this over for me. One of them lives on the Cape. It should say Cape Cod Cooperative Extension Nutrition Education Program. And that's been, they've also provided some after-school programs, and it's been a food nutrition program after school, monthly fruit and vegetable tastings that have been held for all students during lunch in the cafeteria. Vegetables like snap peas, sugar snap peas, broccoli. They do provide ranch dressing for those children who would like to dip. Cantaloupe. Tomorrow it's blueberries and yogurt. So all kinds of things that children have been able to taste. And there have been school-wide events promoting nutrition. They actually come to the after-school nights that we have, and they make smoothies and different things to promote nutrition. And right now we have master gardeners working with our kindergarten, and they were there today with cantaloupe, and they've planted cantaloupe in our kindergarten, and they show them the full cantaloupe, and they have the little plants coming up in our actual kindergarten space, and we planted other vegetables as well as the sugar snap peas and different vegetables that will be coming up at different times throughout the year. So it's a great program that we're involved in. Questions?
That's awesome. Does anybody have any comments or questions? John?
Just on the vegetables, that's interesting. So it's a tasting, so theoretically a student may not have had whatever that vegetable is, and then when they're in the grocery store, they say, oh, I tried that, it's good or something.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's a very cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
Leah?
Is looping new this year? Or has T-Ticket done looping before?
My first year there, one teacher had moved from first to second.
Okay. So this will be kind of a more consistent way of looking at it for the third and fourth grade?
Yes.
And I have one other question about the common planning time. Is that grade level or is it vertical?
It's grade levels.
It's grade levels. And then do they have vertical opportunities too?
Vertical was today during our grade level meeting time, which is after school.
Okay, so that's one. Thanks.
Andrea?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow on that. I had a similar question with the looping. I just want to clarify, is that something that is being done out of necessity, or is it a strategic way of moving forward?
Strategic.
So that will then continue as a process.
Has to be something that the teachers agree to and want to do, because you don't want to force someone to do something like that. So it had to be, it was something that we wanted to pose to the teachers and make sure it was amenable to them and something they really wanted to do. So we looked at our population of students that were coming up. We had co-teachers who are really great. We posed it and they jumped on board, so.
Thanks.
It's been done in other schools, I think, at one point, just a little bit.
Did you have a question or comment?
I did. I just wanted to say I love the staff boards that you do, because I think a lot of times, you know, children see teachers outside of school and they're like, what are you doing here? Like, why are you at school? So I think it's great to see the picture and then see like a hobby that they might have and like, wow, she does that, I didn't know that. And
Yeah.
you know, I think
You don't
that's a
sleep
great
at
idea.
school?
Yeah, but I think that's great.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Kelly?
It's not really has anything to do with this, but this is probably the last time that you'll be here. So I just want to say thank
That's
you
it.
for all of your dedication over the years, and we'll miss you, but wish you the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here, here.
For sure.
I thank everyone.
Thank you. Welcome. So start with our first goal for North Falmouth. I realized how lengthy I wrote these, so I'll kind of do a summary version of it. So essentially, this goal is aimed at sort of aligning our curriculum, and this year's project under that umbrella was to look at assessment in the school. So grade level and common planning time meetings this year have centered on the discussion of assessment and what tools really our staff have created that is best practice in the realm of assessment. So a specific example I can give you that we've collected and incorporated into our work is grade 1 created a math assessment that uses our current curriculum. They tailor the assessment so it actually follows the report card. So essentially what you create is a summative document that if you were to sit down with a parent and have a conference and say, really, how did my child do this year in mathematics? You have an assessment that you can show them that covers all areas that were taught that year, and at least give one overview snapshot of their progress. So that to me is sort of what my goal for this ultimately will look like at every grade level, is having these sort of our best practice assessments all warehoused in one place. Also grade 4, I didn't include this detail, but they took this on as a professional practice goal as a team, so they've added even more extensive detail to their curriculum planning. Looking at staff meeting time going forward, someone on the committee mentioned vertical teams already, but that's exactly something we're going to be implementing. We did it one of our staff meetings, and I've gotten requests since then to have more time devoted to teachers working in groups. I created the groups this time, but we can certainly look how we create the membership going forward, but where you'd have a teacher from each grade level sitting together to discuss instructional practice so that they have an understanding of what's going on in the grade below them, the grade above them, and get a chance to align what we do in a vertical fashion. Occasionally there's professional development opportunities that allow for this, but it's rare, and they really found that it was valuable. So we're going to continue that. So looking at the building-based whole staff meetings next year, where I can fade back some of the administrative pieces and give them more time for this piece of work, which I can be part of, but that they found really valuable. And then really going forward, the next piece that we're going to pause and wait to add is once we implement a new ELA core curriculum. We're adopting a new system for the district next year. We want to see what that looks like and how we'll embed that into the work that we've done so far. So looking forward to see what that will be and how that kind of impacts our planning going forward. Let's return, right, Sharon? Goal 2 is it's also a continuation from last year, looking at our growth rate. We don't have current MCAS data, because once we changed the MCAS assessment itself, we didn't get a growth score yet. We have sort of a year 1 baseline to work off of, but that'll be interesting to see what our data looks like when we get it back completely from this most recent administration. But looking at this, we're kind of really targeting Tier 1 instruction and what goes on in the classrooms to drive improvement, and that's going to target our high needs subgroup and all students together. I was supported in this work a lot this year through some consultants that worked with the district. So one was Deb Harris, the other was Mag Jaffoon, and we were able to use time together and with the assistant principal, Dr. Larner, doing some walkthroughs and finding some trends over time, looking in classrooms, like what were some areas that we can really focus on to drive improvement in this area. And 2 focus areas that we can look at for next year that they've helped us identify are looking at student voice. How much student talk is happening in a classroom, and finding ways to capture that in my feedback, and how we can improve the use of student talk and so that it's valuable, not that you just hear it, but that it actually has a coherent purpose. And the other area was differentiation of learning centers. So as we've evolved more in the elementary school world from a lot of whole group instruction over time, so if you were to come in now, you see a lot of small group instruction. You have like a mini lesson for everybody, and then kids are broken off into groups, and you'll have a small number of children working with the teacher on a targeted skill, and other kids doing independent activities. So it's great for their independence. They're actually doing some applied practice of what they've learned. But we want to make sure that those opportunities when they're working independently are differentiated more for their level. So even though you have some tried and true activities that work really well from a management standpoint, may not necessarily be meeting their needs from an educational standpoint. So we want to make sure we put a tighter focus on that going forward, that you can reuse formats, but you can make small tweaks so that the work is more challenging if that's what a student needs, or maybe brought down a level to where they're actually working at their skill level. Our IST process this year is also, supporting students with high needs. Looking at the IST process as a place where we could incorporate the district's partnership with McLean Hospital this year. So we've had a number of cases go for consult with McLean, and we've gotten some excellent specific feedback from them about strategies we can use with students. And one refinement we made over the course of the year is that we increased the membership of those in attendance at those consult meetings with the staff from McLean. They happen remotely, so it's on a screen and we're interacting with them. that way. But we were able to start giving coverage for classroom teachers to be part of those consult meetings because they can describe the students they're working with better than any of us really can. There's no way to get their feedback on a form and relay it to the McLean staff, and then you always want to think of things you could say in the moment. So we had some real success with that. We tried it once with a case, and now we've institutionalized that as a practice going forward, that those will be the people who will attend that and really be able to interact face-to-face with the McLean staff. So we've got some excellent best practice that we've now put as part of our sort of toolkit in IST. Goal 3 is where we targeted attendance. And again, this year we primarily have discussions about attendance at our front office team meetings that occur every Thursday morning. And that incorporates myself, the assistant principal, our school adjustment counselor, who's our attendance officer essentially, and the school nurse. Did I do something? Oh, thank you, Sharon. Excellent service. And so we've continued that, but we've had a tighter focus on sort of one piece that we started with this year is who were we concerned about last year, so that this process rolls over. We don't sort of reboot each year and start new. Like there's some cases we wanted to continue discussing from the end of last year. And now we looked at how are we going to reach out to families sooner. So we've had phone calls that have happened earlier than in the past, but we don't wait till the letter comes out, essentially, before we've made contact with the family if we start to see an attendance concern creep up. So every week we're discussing these cases as we see numbers increase. So when you start to go from 4 to 5, our adjustment counselor has been excellent, working with the nurse and the classroom teachers to find out why that number has increased. If it's 4 days for the flu, it's not a phone call. But there are some cases where it's a mystery. Why is that continually to go up? And let's make a phone call now to see what we can do to help support that family. So it's just a more rapid response from the school. And when we have had parent meetings, the change in practice we've put into place for this year is who's in attendance for those meetings. We've had some real success for students who receive specialized instruction in the school to include their special education case manager as a person who would attend an attendance meeting. So I think from their perspective, it helps a parent understand when you're chronically absent, the impact on a child's education, to hear that, you know, this is how their service, I give them specialized reading 3 times a week, but if you're not here, this is what, you know, of course we always make up the time, but there's a difference between trying to make it all up at once when they're finally attending versus what progress would have looked like, likely, if you had been here consistently. And we can use data to show that. That's been really powerful in at least 2 cases that I can think of immediately where parents understood that that's why you need to be here consistently, and that drove improvement for those children in their attendance. Also helping with our attendance has been counseling provided through Gosnold. We have once a week at North this year on Wednesdays, and we were able to fill a full day's caseload, and really within, I think, the first month or 2 of school, we'd identified a full caseload for our counselor. And for the students that they've worked with, we've noticed that that's something they really look forward to during the week, and it helps them to, you know, they want to come in, and the counselor's been able to offer some suggestions to the classroom teacher and work together to really support that child's attendance. That's been a big success. I was a member of the district's attendance committee, working with Principal McLaughlin, and so I'm excited to see what we can do with the attendance policy going into effect with some more clearer guidelines of when we interface with families and letters and that sort of thing. So I think that'll be a great refinement. And the 4th goal for North Falmouth is centered on safety. This is year 2 of our reestablished safety committee. And so we tackled a few projects this year. One was the evacuation procedure we have for the school. We're not located near many, like a business district or somewhere where it's really easy to possibly relocate the students quickly if we need to. We have a memo of understanding with the North Falmouth Congregational Church as our relocation area. We've never actually practiced taking students there in any amount of, you know, any group size really. But what our committee did this year is we went over as a committee. We wanted to see how long would it take to get from point A to B, what the space looks like. We had one of our school liaison officers who's a member of our safety committee join us, and so we could get his perspective about possible obstacles we might face as we implement this, if we ever needed to implement it. And we took extensive photographs of the space that I'm going to use as part of staff training in our staff meeting when we return from summer, just to show staff what it would actually look like. Here's where you would go, and make this policy, I think, something that's a little bit clearer for staff if we ever were to need to use it. The second area of safety that we focused on this year was the medical emergency response team. updating the roster of who is on this team and actually starting to drill using this team. So really the extent of the drills right now have been to convene us as a group, and we've been able to average about 2 minutes or under to get a full team together to respond to a medical emergency in the school. Next year we're looking toward training and using some specific scenarios around how would we use our CPR training or the AED in the school, and I think just to feel more comfortable that if we had an event happen that we'd be able to respond appropriately and hopefully in a safe manner and help someone if they needed it. And again, looking in some other events or some other areas that this group at school will focus on next year is how would we respond to a major medical event that would occur at the school. Students getting transported to hospitals, like what's our response, how would we manage parents and communication with the public. So we want to run through some exercises next year that focus on that. And we looked at adopting a formal document that helps to archive the work that we're doing as a safety committee. And if we were to have an actual event in the school, how we keep the records of our response for that event. And one of our committee members brought a document for us to look at our June meeting that we'll continue with next year. That was something that was used at Hui. It's kind of a standard safety protocol that they've used on ships and things that you have a medical event happen. Here's the response, and then more importantly, it also has an area for us to document how we debrief the situation and what changes would we put in place from the future. So it's a great way to kind of keep a history of those things, because as a building principal, when you take over a building, it's really hard to find records of how the school's practice has evolved over time. At least in my experience it has been. So you don't want to recreate the wheel necessarily, and I'd love to know that at some point, if I were to hand over the reins to someone else, they'd have a full history of how we've made the school a safer place and where they can pick up the work from. And those are our 4 goals. Any questions?
Leah? I love the focus on student talk. And I just have a resource for you of Jeff Swire's academic conversations, and he's through Stanford University. Tons of resources, free resources, and strategies for improving academic conversation in the classroom.
Could you email me that, Lee?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic.
Any other comments or questions? Melissa?
So I had one earlier, and I was trying to jog my memory if it was in goal 1 or 2. But to goal 4, no surprise that I'm going to give you lots of kudos on the future training being placed for the CPR and AEDs. Time is life when it comes to medical emergencies, and again, I come back to my plea to the district that all staff members be basic CPR trained. I know it's a tall order, but thank you for recognizing that you are far away from emergency professionals, and it's really a big deal. Honestly, I just had a patient yesterday who had a history of arrhythmia, and because there were people around him at the public place he was at, he's alive today. And that is one of hundreds that I have heard in my profession. So I really applaud you, and I strongly encourage the district to really have everyone CPR. And the AEDs today are so much easier than when they first came out. They're almost flawless as far as where to put the pads. It's so easy. It's almost like a Fisher-Price toy is how easy they try to make it, because they recognize that people are lay people and they're just in the community and they're panicked because they just saw a stranger or a loved one down. So thank you.
I think it came out of a staff request too, that those that have been trained, you go through the training and you feel really confident with it, but then you never get to practice very often, or at all.
Hopefully.
Not on a real, but even in a practice situation, so that you stay fluid with that skill set. So that's something they're asking for, that they'd like to just go through some practice sessions more often so that they'd feel comfortable utilizing it if they ever had to. So.
Right. As professionals, we are, our certifications are renewed every other year. So, and we do it often. So I can only imagine how it is for the layperson, and I applaud your effort with this. So thank you. I wish I could remember my other comment.
Yeah, I have a comment. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the elementary staffs, principals, assistant principals, teachers, kids. Because I think what you did in school improvement is absolutely outstanding. I just jotted down some things. Knowledge of students, supporting kids. That's what education's all about, and you all do that to a great extent. That's your daily basis. Health, safety, and welfare of kids and education. Professional development, differentiated instruction, working with McLean, working with Gosnold, community partnerships, parent groups, safety of kids, looking at attendance, assessments, where are kids' strengths at? Not weaknesses, but what are their needs? Co-teaching, postcards, teaching assistants. And I could go on and on and on, but one of the things that you all do, and I think is most important in the educational world, is you celebrate kids. And that's what you need to do, and you do it every day. Thank you.
John?
I just have a comment, and you all were 100% present today, so I'm going to send you each a postcard.
Terry, I remembered what my comment was, sorry.
Sorry, it's closed out. No.
Okay, great. I'll send you a postcard. Just a snapshot of what did my child learn. I think that's a great idea. You know, parents aren't educators and appreciate a quick overview of a dashboard, a once-over. Tell me exactly what does this mean. So
I think that came from personal experience. Now that I have my own child in school full-time and not with me, you don't get much feedback from them as to how their day is going. You get a folder with some activities. He's in kindergarten, so it's not a lot of heavy lifting, but ultimately I want to know, how's he doing?
Yeah.
And you wait for the parent-teacher conference, but it's nice to have, if I could have a document in front of me that says, gee, here's all the standards, here's how he did. That's a great overview, so I just decided to make it.
Nice.
So, he won't get it, but...
Thanks.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Yes, monumental amount of work goes into those reports.
I know.
So thank you, Bill, for pulling out some of the highlights.
Absolutely.
Nice summary. Yeah. Okay, so now we'll conduct routine business. The first item would be to approve the minutes. So could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from May 23rd.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
We have a discussion.
John?
I have an amendment suggestion. We have the mention of each of the nominations, you know, for yourself for chair, for Kelly for vice chair, for Leah for vice chair, and for Melissa for secretary. And it has the votes for each one, but it doesn't reflect the votes that were there for Leah, because we did take a vote for that. So, and as I recall, it was 3 in favor, myself, Megan, and Bill, and 6 against. It was Leah, Kelly, Terry, Andrea, Natalie, and Melissa. So if we took a vote on something, it should be reflected in the minutes.
I don't think we did. Oh, sorry.
We did vote on it.
Because we said we don't need to vote because we just had a majority, didn't we?
We had individual votes for each person.
That we did not have a second vote, because you don't need a second vote if a majority passes.
We went around and said who
We did, we had a vote.
wanted.
A second
You had a
time around?
If you have a motion and you have a vote, and we voted.
I don't remember it that way at all.
Well,
We might
that's
need
what
to
happened.
go back to the tape.
I'll review the tape, but I don't think there was an actual vote.
We went around the table, you recall, you said, well, we'll start this way this time, or you
Yeah,
started
and
the opposite
everyone,
way.
it was for,
And we went, no, we vote, because you have two separate votes.
no, you
There's
have
two
oh, sorry. There were 2 nominations, but there was only one, there's only one vote. It was,
There was 2 votes. It was 6-3 on one, and then I think it was 6-3 on the other way. So 6-3 in favor of you, and
but we didn't,
6-3 against Leah was the votes.
that would have meant everyone voted twice? We didn't vote twice, we only voted, we went around the room once.
We did vote twice, but we can look at the tape, but that's actually what happened, so. Thank you.
So do you want to hold these then?
I think we should hold them.
I think we
Hold
should
them until
hold
next-
them, yeah, okay. Okay, so next we'll hear a report from the superintendent.
Just a couple of quick things. Firstly, I did send an email to the school committee, but I would like to congratulate Zachary Goodwich-Wadaker, who has been selected as the assistant superintendent for the Seekonk Public Schools, and I wish him the very best on that. Congratulations, we will miss you.
Yes.
I hope they appreciate I'm very, very proud of you and that accomplishment.
Congratulations. We still might not let him go.
Terry, if I may. I just have one final question for you, Zach.
I'm sure you did.
What was the middle name again? No.
Goodwich.
No, it's
That's
not.
what he's called around here.
Oh, it is, okay. fair enough.
He's a good witch. Yep.
But good luck, you've done a great job. You'll be sorely missed.
40. Thank you.
Patrick, he's
Actually, it's
not
been
even
my
40.
exact 4 years. He started like my first meeting.
Okay, so,
Congratulations. So I'll just go on, just a couple of quick things. Falmouth High School Awards Night on the 31st was just an incredible event, and the amount of money that this community gives to our kids, you know, we awarded $510,951.50 on May 31st to kids. It is absolutely amazing. Graduation in June was wonderful, and you can see the breakdown of where kids are going. I think it's important to call that out for the committee. The Falmouth Realtors Breakfast, I attended that and spoke, and we had 3 students, Emma Russell, Sarah Goulart, and Michael Briggs, were honored at that breakfast, and each received a $1,000 scholarship, so congratulations to them. There is a piece about that contest of which Nancy Ashworth mentioned, and I just put a little part of this young lady, Helen Porter, of her essay in there. And thank you to Judy Fenwick for her work on the voter registration drive.
okay, yes?
Can I just add that at our retreat, when we're looking at additional things, we do need someone to take on the voter registration and breakfast. I sort of roped Judy into it again, but I just want to make sure that we have it covered for next year, because it's such an amazing thing that the school committee has sponsored for a really long time, mostly thanks to Judy. And we keep roping her back in. But
maybe that should be a role.
I'm just wondering if we should maybe add it at some point to the actual rules, because it is a really important thing to do.
Okay. Okay, a report from the chair, which would be me now. Okay. I just want to say graduation made me cry, and all of a sudden you look at those people and you think, we sure hope we taught them well, because they're going to be taking care of us now. You know, they're going to be being our lawyers, our doctors, and everything. So it was great, even though my hand was bruised from shaking all those hands. Some of those people have really strong grips. But anyway, it was a wonderful ceremony. I would just say a couple of nuts and bolts things. I would say is I asked people to reply if they had some times when they'd be not available for the retreat. I heard from a couple of people, so if I don't hear from anybody tomorrow, I'll float out the dates and we'll get that rolling. Okay, and on that same email, if there's something you want to discuss at the retreat, maybe you could indicate that. Okay, so, and the other thing I'll remind people is if you could, get the hours you did for volunteers for the VIPS program. I'll put that out. You don't have to say anything other than this many hours and hit reply back to me. It's very, very minimal. It would mean a lot to Tracy Crago to have that on the record, yes.
Would it be possible for us to have like a timesheet here or something where we could just keep something on
It's so
record?
She encouraged that it doesn't have to be 100% accurate. I mean,
I just ballparked it.
Yeah, like how many meetings did you go to? Time, you know.
Okay.
Just, yeah. I mean, I ballparked our actual meeting time.
Yeah.
You know, our normally scheduled meetings, but the subcommittees, if you could just, okay. So I'll send it out again. Remember, you don't have to say anything, just write this many hours and I'll turn them into, she gave us, is letting us use a special condensed form just because there's so many of us and to make it simple and everything, so, okay? So now, I guess that's all the news I had. And do any committee members have reports?
Well, I just have a mention of the Cape Cod Collaborative. We've actually recommended for appointment a assistant special ed administrator. It has to be affirmed at our meeting tomorrow night. But other than that, I wanted to actually see, I didn't have any particular questions necessarily for Patrick or Zachary, but if, you know, would we normally cover those different, wouldn't we normally say that technology and HR and finance and curriculum?
Oh, that's my fault, I guess. I forgot to mention that. If you read the reports and you have questions for them, you can, I'm sorry, Patrick, I'm very sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
I have nothing to add.
Okay. Yeah, if you had any particular questions, you could send them an email after you read them or forward it to Nancy, we'll forward it to them. Sure. Andrea?
So are we going to do questions here, or you want us to do them by email?
Either way, you could tell it to Nancy and she could get you an answer.
Okay, I'm just confused. We're not going through the reports then?
They've been sent to us to read this time.
Okay.
Not orally, not verbally. Okay, so did you read through them and you had a particular question?
I did.
Okay, so maybe you could...
Who's the question addressed to? Go ahead.
Oh, I'm here.
That sounds like I'm not really sure what order we're putting them in. So I just had a question on the next steps for the field project. And so it said something about the contract for CDM Smith. And can you tell me what a horizontal project is and why that doesn't go out to...
The horizontal, it's just, so Massachusetts...
because it's not a vertical building?
There you go.
Oh.
And very simple.
I thought it was like horizontal in time.
No, Massachusetts has the most complex procurement laws in this country. Everybody sort of admits to that. But fortunately, horizontal projects do not have the same bidding processes as vertical projects.
And stuff like that.
Right,
Okay.
it counts. So we are fine to continue working with CDM Smith.
Okay.
Which is very fortunate since they have 6 years of experience working with us on this.
And because that happened well before my tenure, what was the vetting process for CDM Smith? Because I know when school building projects go on, that people are always very concerned about who's doing it and how they're going to be able to follow through to the end.
Sure. So I'm not. I can't speak to the vetting process on how CDM Smith got brought back in. I think it was longer than 6 years ago, but a while back. But I do know CDM Smith from previous work across the region and the Commonwealth, and if I had my druthers, they would be the vendor. So I'm very pleased that they happen to be the vendor on this project, this horizontal project. They don't do. I don't know if they do vertical projects. So very pleased with them, given their experience in Falmouth and on these types of projects.
Excellent.
Are there any other, have you read the other reports? Are there any other questions that anybody wanted? You can either ask them to Nancy or send them an email. Okay.
I have a committee member report.
Okay.
Since Patrick didn't speak to it, I'll just mention that Budget Subcommittee met today. We had a great meeting talking about capital projects. It's very exciting, and we'll have it at our next meeting, right, Patrick?
We will submit something. Well, it's up to you whether you want to talk about it, but we'll just begin to sort of review what's on the plan.
Yep. So that was very exciting.
Okay. Any other committee reports? Leah?
I just want to make a comment about all of the amazing recitals and events that I've been going to with my kids over the last few weeks. So there's just been a lot of work put out by lots of music teachers and band teachers and choir teacher, chorus teachers. It's been great. And I know it's really hard at the end of the year to get everything done. So having these presentations is very nice. Thanks.
Any other committee members? Yes?
It's not really a committee report, but I'm shameless follow-up plug for the East Falmouth June jog that we have. This year was our best year yet, except for the first year, so we're super proud of that. We had great weather and an excellent turnout. That was 2 Sundays ago, and then this past Sunday was the Falmouth Education Foundation Flag Day 5K, which had over 500 registrants, and I'm not sure how many of those ran, but I can tell you that my daughter and I were 2 of them, and again, it was a beautiful day. It was a great event, lots of friendly faces along the race route, and it was just where I just want to really take a moment to give a shout out, and I know that we do often, but FEF is so good to us, and it's by having events like this for not just people in the school, but for the public, really brings the community together. And this is kind of a running town, and it's kind of fun to get the party started with both of those races. So anyway.
Okay.
This is a follow-up, but I don't know if we're
Okay,
in order here.
Back to the committee reports. Anybody else have any committee things? I would just like to say we heard a lot about policy night. Policy works really hard, and that's all. I just want to say that. Okay. Agenda items. Is that what you wanted?
Okay. No, I thought we were on subcommittee reports. That's why I was.
We are. That's what committee reports are.
Oh yeah. What? Well, there's committee member reports. And
Oh, I don't know. See, this is my first time.
It's okay, Terry.
I am a college graduate. I'll be able to figure this out. Okay.
I have a request for an agenda.
Alrighty.
So sometime in the near future, I'd like us to have on our agenda a discussion about Gosneld's plan for the property next to Morse Pond School. I'm sure everybody saw it in the paper. We need to, I think, talk about that, hear about that, learn about that. And follow-up information. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, any follow-up information? Yes?
I think based on the public comment we heard today, I would like some follow-up information on what is the scope of use of styrofoam trays. We heard in North Falmouth. I've heard some things elsewhere, and kind of some of that, the background of why we've moved to that, what might be some of the other options, just to start to explore that a little bit further. Ditto.
Okay.
Well, there's also the playground piece. The playground piece to follow up with.
The playground piece?
As an agenda item. Yeah.
Oh, and I have one more.
Yes, Kelly?
Oh, I just jumped ahead of Megan, though. Is that okay?
I'm sorry.
Okay. I haven't seen any posting as far as the athletic, I don't want to say the wrong term, athletic director, athletic.
Health and wellness?
Health and wellness director. I haven't seen a posting for that position. I didn't know if we're waiting for something.
The posting went out.
It did go out?
Yeah.
Like in the last week or?
No, it was posted quite a while ago.
Really?
Yeah. It's been out there for a while.
I think it was in May it was on School Spring.
Oh,
It's been out there.
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
Right, wasn't it? In May in School
Yeah,
Spring?
those applicants.
Yeah.
So we're just in the process, just because we're getting kind of close to the new year?
I'm waiting again for the budget to settle, and there are a couple of positions that I'm waiting on. As things are shifting, we have a major shift at central office, so
Okay.
I'm gonna wait.
Okay. Now, subcommittee reports, which we heard some of throughout this mishmash of things I said. Anybody else want to say anything else? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Go ahead.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions or noes? Okay.
Yay, Terry!